Today I would like to discuss problem solving and decision making in the workplace. So the organization I'm going to focus on when I discuss problem solving and decision making is an organization that has less than 500 people throughout the entire organization. It's within the automotive, motor vehicle, and service industry. The organization has been under its control, so under the owner's control right now for the last 8 years, although the organization has been in existence under other ownership for the last 50 years. So I'm actually going to discuss where I'm currently employed, which is Harrison Truck Centers. So the most important aspect of problem solving within an organization is going to be to identify the organization's problem. So the problem I'm going to discuss today in our organizational context is that our service technicians are not fully certified after 90 days of employment. So in order to create a problem-solving approach, I based my approach on the heuristic 4-step approach. So understanding the problem, devising a plan, evaluating the plan, and then redefining or repeating the process. So I came up with an 8-step approach. So when I discovered this approach and I kind of evaluated and created this approach, I utilized the heuristic 4-step as I mentioned, but I also utilized the University of Iowa's HR website, which is listed in my resources at the below. So my problem solving approach has 8 steps. So identify the issues, understand everyone's interests, brainstorm possible solutions, evaluate the options, select an option, document the solution, implement the solution, and then evaluate the solution finally. So now what I'm going to do is I will discuss each step in detail, how to complete the step in any problem solving context, but then how we are completing the step within my organization's context. So how to complete step 1, identify the issues. So in order to do that in any context, what you need to do is you need to seek multiple sources to determine the issue at hand. How we are doing that within Harrison Truck Centers is that our basic issue is our technicians are not fully certified after 90 days of employment. We found this out by talking with technicians, with service managers, and with our corporate trainers. Step 2 is going to be to understand everyone's interests. So how you complete step 2 in any context is to listen to the interests of each party involved. So that means creating a safe space where they can share their point of view, where they can openly communicate. So ask each party to share their point of view of the problem itself. So why it matters to them and how a solution could potentially impact them. How we are doing step 2 within Harrison Truck Centers is that we are talking to technicians to understand why they aren't fully certified, talking to service managers to understand why they need technicians fully certified, talking with trainers to understand how the certification impacts our overall business, and then finally talking with our ownership to understand why they value fully trained technicians and why they're asking us as a human resources department to truly push for fully trained technicians. Step 3 is going to be to brainstorm possible solutions. So how you complete step 3 in any context would be draw up your ideal criteria before looking at available options. Fontainebleau recommends that you do this so when you are brainstorming, you have somewhat of an idea of where you want to go. This really enables you to come up with solutions that might actually be useful instead of potentially wasting your time on solutions that are so far out of the park that there's no way they could ever be practical in your organization. So list all your solutions you come up with. How we are doing step 3 within Harrison Truck Centers is our brainstorming led us to creating 90-day training checklists, implementing training times throughout the technician's first 90 days. So scheduling times on calendars with the service manager and the technicians to set that time aside so they will work solely on their training. Implement meetings with trainers so technicians understand the importance of their trainings. A lot of times once they hit those first 30 days, they're out in the shop and they're training. And so doing computer trainings or more classroom material gets pushed aside because they really just want to use the hands-on material. But having those trainings and meeting with the trainer to explain the importance and the validity of that is really important. And then adding trainings to our mentorship program. So we have mentorship programs for technicians that are more green and that are new to our business, and we pair them with more experienced technicians. So just trying to work that in more effectively. So step 4 is going to be to evaluate our options. So how you complete step 4 in any context is you can create pros and cons from your potential solutions. Narrow your solutions down to 5 or 10 practical solutions that could actually be feasible in your workplace. And then create pros and cons so you can see where the best solution may lie. And then the other thing you need to do is distinguish between real and false options. So Fontenay-Blue also lists this as a really important aspect of problem solving within the workplace, because you need to understand, even if the solution may look great on paper, if it's not a real, practical, applicable solution, it's not the solution you need to pursue. So how we are implementing step 4 is that we created the checklist. So a pro of that is it's simple to implement and it makes it really easy to track. It gives you a visual tracking aid, which can be really helpful when multiple people are involved with the process. When we evaluated implementing training throughout the first 90 days, a pro of that is it really allows HR to lay out all of the training schedules and times when a new hire starts, so nothing will be overlooked. So a con of that is that it really does add a lot to HR's plate. So as HR now, we need to spend probably half an hour to 45 minutes with each new hire determining their training schedule. So it just kind of adds more to the overall orientation process. Step 5 is going to be select an option. So how you complete step 5 in pretty much any context is you just need to decide which option is best for your problem. So how we completed step 5 is we decided on 3 options to implement. So create a 90-day checklist. We're going to try to do that. Create a training timeline, and then schedule meetings with our corporate trainer. So we feel with these 3 options, this is really going to help us solve this problem. Step 6 is going to be to document the solution. So how you complete step 6 in any context, document what you've decided upon. So this is helpful, number 1, if there's potential confusion later with what was decided and agreed upon. And it's helpful also if the solution works, it's really good to already have a process started. How we are implementing step 6 at Harrison Truck Centers is that we created a plan to make the 90-day checklist. So we did some rough outlining and those kinds of things. We also created a formal training timeline. So we looked at like between day 1 and day 45, we want to see this. Day 45 to 60, we want to say this. So very like broad training topics, but gives us enough that when we move forward, we'll have the solution documented. And then create a plan for meetings with the corporate trainer. So we worked with our corporate trainers to develop an agenda that would allow them to have similar meetings with every new hire so we can practice consistently across the company. Step 7 is implement the solution. So how you do step 7 in any context is just begin implementing the solutions you've decided upon. How we are doing step 7 at Harrison Truck Centers is we've started utilizing the 90-day checklist. We've started creating training timelines for every technician. And we have started scheduling meetings with the trainers a month in advance. So it really allows them to plan ahead so they can be prepared for these meetings. Step 8 is your final step in your problem solving solution, essentially, and it's to evaluate the solution. So how you do step 8 in any context is you're going to evaluate if your solution is successful. So if it is, consider writing a process off the solution. If this is a problem that's going to come up again in 6 months, don't just let your solution go. Use your solution again. You've already done the work. If the solution was unsuccessful, how can it be more successful? Evaluate what could have gone better and what you could have changed. So how we are doing step 8 is we have noticed that the checklist really, really helpful. Everyone's understanding what needs to be done, and it's a really clear representation of what isn't done. The training timeline is also really helpful because it does, like I said earlier, it doesn't allow them to kind of just overlook that training time and do something else. They have to focus on that. Our meetings with the trainers could be improved, so we'd love for a more consistent agenda to be developed and just really helping the trainers to understand what we as HR really need out of this meeting. So the next thing I want to move into is suggesting a decision-making approach in the workplace. So for this problem, we used multiple decision-making approaches, but I'm just going to focus on one for the purpose of this presentation. I want to start with a quote. 77.8% of managers recommended considering many factors in decision making. So this was done, this finding was found in a survey by Moss in 2018. So they surveyed the top 10 traits you need to be an effective leader in your workplace. And this was number 3. So when you make decisions, you can't just consider one factor, which is why I'm recommending a SWOT analysis. So Schern defines SWOT analysis as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So your strengths and weaknesses are internal factors, and then your threats and opportunities are going to be external factors to an organization. So I'm going to discuss some of the advantages and disadvantages to using a SWOT analysis. Nornmeyer lists SWOT analysis. Some advantages of them is that SWOT can be utilized for problems in an organization as a whole, in a department, as a team, or as an individual. So it's applicable across multiple sizes of teams in an organization. SWOT also requires the same objective approach regardless of the purpose of the SWOT. So in order to use a SWOT analysis, you basically just need to look at the organization and analyze it. It doesn't matter if this SWOT is like, oh, well, this SWOT's for the owners or this SWOT is for the secretaries. It doesn't matter. The SWOT for an organization as a whole needs to stay consistent. SWOT also offers multi-level analysis and considers multiple factors. So there's 4 categories of factors, but then you can consider multiple factors within each category. And then you can utilize both qualitative and quantitative data. And it's a simple process. To do a SWOT, you don't need specialized training or instruction. You really just need to be able to think about and evaluate your business. And then it's also really cost effective. You don't need any special software or anything like that. Nornmeyer also lists some disadvantages of SWOT. So SWOT doesn't weigh different factors, so you can't distinguish between how important a factor is within your business. SWOT also could potentially create a one-dimensional approach. So when you list something as a strength, it could actually, in reality, be a strength and a weakness, but on your SWOT, it's only going to be listed as a strength. And then it could be potentially subjective. So based on your objectivity or subjectivity, that's going to influence how objective or subjective your SWOT analysis is. Finally, I'd like to leave you with 4 ways effective leaders solve problems. So Lapis listed these 4 ways of how effective leaders solve problems across an organization, regardless of the problem, of the decision-making technique. This is how we need to solve problems. So utilize transparent communication. So everyone needs to be able to fully express their concerns and point of view. And you need to be able to facilitate an open dialogue within your organization. The next aspect Lapis lists is breaking down silos. So enable boundaryless organizations that focus on community and culture. And then silos invite hidden agendas. Lapis listed this in 2011. And really, they're the root cause of most workplace problems, actually, because it's a lack of communication in the workplace. The third way to do this that Lapis listed is engaging open-minded people. So working with open-minded people allows you to break down those silos and those communication barriers. And then open-minded people often view risk in a positive way, so they tackle problems head on. Finally, have a solid foundational strategy. So a strategy has to be implemented for you to understand where the organization is headed in order for you to find a best problem-solving solution that benefits the organization. I'm going to leave you with my references, and thank you so much for watching and learning about problem solving with me today.